at anything that we can do to avoid a layoff. I think that is, should be our number one goal. This is a terrible time to have a layoff because there are no jobs to go to. And I would hope that we do get some cooperation from different groups in the town, because I will say one thing: if we have groups that agree to the zero, and we have other units or groups that do not agree to taking the freeze, I will not be in favor of transferring any money from a group that is willing to go with a zero raise to a group that is not willing to go. And I will not vote for that. It's a tough time. It really is a tough time. It's a hard time to be sitting up here too, but it's tough decisions that we have to make, and if we weren't here, somebody else would be in the same position we're in. So I just hope we can work our way through this, and in all seriousness, keep every one of our employees that we have in the town. Thank you.
Steve or Mike?
I just think it's, again, I think it's a very thoughtful approach here as far as what you presented, and reasonable as far as the assumptions, and, you know, it's pretty clear that the revenue stream is very finite, and there are certain sources you can get it from, and I think you've identified them very well and quite clearly. As far as, you know, the split at this particular point, and I think it's a good starting point for both general government and school department to say, this is what we have, and this is how we've arrived at the assumptions, and we needed a target to aim at, and I think you and the town administrator have provided that for us, and certainly it's going to promote some additional discussions, but from the general government standpoint, we are at a juncture where you can't help but eliminate programs and services at this particular point. And it's very important that we articulate it the way we are right now, and let the public know that this is what we're facing, this is the situation, and the only way that we can achieve any semblance of order here in maintaining services is to ask our employees to sacrifice and to be part of the solution, because we're not getting the additional assistance from the state. The revenue isn't there. I don't see any giant windfalls coming from the federal government yet. I mean, based upon the discussions with the stimulus package, it looks as though whatever was going to be included in there for certain local governments have been curtailed or cut back on it. So until we find out what's happening there, we can't count on it. So I hate to balance the budget on the backs of the town employees, but there's no other back to do it on at this particular point in time. And I would hope that the employees and the unions, the collective bargaining group, and the members just take a look around and look at their colleague that's beside them, and figure out that it's important to them and their families to keep them employed, and also to the community as a whole, that we provide them with reasonable level of services for public safety, health, and education. And we've been racking our brains for months now, and trying to find revenue and solutions to this. And one thing I can say, in listening and talking to other people from other communities, with as bad a shape that we're in, we're not as in bad shape as some of these other communities. We were well prepared for the current fiscal year, and handling the budget cuts, the reduction in local aid in the current fiscal year, and put us in a little better stead heading into the next one, but it's still not a pretty picture. So I think it's a good target, as I said, for the school department and the general government to work towards these numbers. And again, there's certainly going to be more discussion as far as, you know, how it finally ends up, but we need a starting point, and this is it.
Yeah,
Michael?
I would agree. This is a very reasoned approach. I think it's keeping rural services, in my opinion, where they are now, or keeping somewhat of a semblance of them is extremely important. I think the top priority of any government should be to too deep, or cut anything too deep, I mean, and it's, I don't know. I think I'd like to echo everything that's been said here, and it's just, I mean, what else can you say? It's just, the numbers are where they are, and there isn't anywhere else we can go for any more money.
Okay, so basically, Greg, town government should be working toward a budget number of 11,707. That's exclusive of the enterprise fund, of course. And the schools, 22,638, 661, and that is exclusive of any of the money that they raise through fees. Any other questions? Any questions from any of our guests at this point? Okay, then I would like to move. Oh, I'm sorry,
I think
Jeff.
Slow line. The budget for the general government of 11,707 and the schools for 22,638 will be the budgets you are asking those two entities to live within?
Correct.
Or-
That's the total amount of money that we have is the 13,330,564.
That's our balanced budget.
That's that's a fully balanced budget based on taking out of the fixed cost any increase in insurance, right? And taking out of the fixed cost that's funded by revenue, $150,000, and supplementing that debt service with the debts from the debt stabilization fund. And what's left over from the revenue, and the revenue plan basically is, I didn't detail it out, but it's off of this detail sheet that we've been working with the Custom Accounting, which includes the Prop 2.5, new growth, our adjusted revenues, the one that we don't have a final number on yet, or a better reading on, is our motor vehicle excise tax. We have made adjustments for that, but, you know, as I think I said last week, our automobile age has grown by a couple of years over the past couple, which, and, you know, if you read the paper and listen to automobile sales, we generate most of our excise, the biggest part of the excise tax revenue from an increase each year requires that new cars are purchased, because we get 90% of a new car in terms of taxes, and so that's not growing, and then the governor's cuts. So what's not in the revenue number is the governor's proposed 1-cent meals and room tax, which I believe generates 200 and something. It's between $230,000 and $290,000, I think, somewhere in there
For Reading?
for North Reading.
It's a local option.
No, I wasn't talking about the local
not the
option.
local option?
No, I'm talking
Oh.
about, no,
All right, I was gonna say.
no.
There's two
Those
proposals.
are the meals tax, correct?
Yeah, the meals and room tax that the governor proposed of 1 penny. There is also an alternate the board has not discussed of, you know, of course, the legislation has to pass first, of a 1% additional meals tax that would be imposed upon our local restaurants on top of whatever the state does. And that's a local rule number. And
Is that local, we would have to approve that?
that would have to be a town meeting vote, I believe.
Town meeting or just the board?
I think it's the board.
I think it's
Is
just
it?
the board.
I believe it's the board.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Last year it was I think it was 2%. They adjusted it to 1%.
And when we first saw the number last year, it was a great big number until we looked
600 and something.
deeper.
Yeah.
Looked at what we
It
actually
was-
had.
Somehow, I think a couple of the chains, like McDonald's, must have had all of their restaurants registered here in North Reading or something to that effect. Anyway, it was a bogus number. We don't see a large amount of money coming from that, but we have not discussed that. And there's no sense even talking about it until
The,
we know we have the option.
The weekend.
the letters from restaurants have started pouring into the
Yeah.
State House already, so.
And I don't know if you listened to the radio, or the news this evening about the 27 or 29 cent.
27 cents.
27 cent proposed
Yeah, yes.
gasoline tax.
Yeah, it's on the news. Yep.
So,
Running before we.
taxation is,
Shifting.
I don't know how I'm gonna spend it, they won't give it to me.
No.
anyway, so the number that we'd be asking the school to stick with would be the 22,638,000 number. And then they generate, is it almost
6, 7?
No, it's more than that, I think, and I think they generate $1 million in fees, in between bus and athletic fees and stuff like that, that they include in their budget. That's not in that number.
It's not, because it's an in and out charge.
Yeah. It's outside revenue. Yes, ma'am?
When the school department was talking about the shortage of the 1.7 million, what budget were they?
The $1.79 million budget deficit, right, was not $1.7 million of a school budget deficit. It was based on a 3% growth in town government budget and a 6% growth in the school budget, plus an 8% increase in the health insurance, which was in the budget. Based on revenue and taking all that into account, we were off by 7.9 something million dollars. It was over 2 million because we were using a figure of 10% cut in state aid, and it came in a little less than that, based on the governor's announcement a couple weeks ago.
When they were asked to do the level funded budget, though, was it the original budget or the suggested number?
Their level funded,
Level
I'm
service.
sorry, their level services budget, right? We were using a figure to come up with, an idea where we were of 6%. That was based on what was needed, basically, what we felt was needed to cover their expenses. They published a figure of 7.8%, roughly, almost 8%, I think it was in the paper. It was 7.8 something. How they arrived at that was, they went through their various costs. I think SPED was, they claimed, was taking a jump, and that pushed it past the 6%. But I'm not sure exactly where it's all at. Some of it is in contracts, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the budget did call for 7.8%
Yeah.
increase.
What was that number? Was it 7.8% increase? What was that number? Do you know? I know that it's
The 7.
high right now, but what is that actual number?
Dollar number?
Well,
Yeah.
multiply the schools 22,
227?
227,445. No, you really,
Yeah.
you got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
24,118,429.
That, in that number is the, what they raise.
That's the 7 to 8%,
That's-
that with the raise, with the staff, with the increases in salary and the.
Right, that's level services for FY10.
But some of that money is money they get from fees.
24 what?
About $1 million.
The fees, the fee number is embedded in that
What was it,
document.
Sean?
Well,
24
that's
what? 24 what?
24